Okay, turning now to the intelligence connections. We've collated all of the most important stuff, and we're going to lead off with an extraordinary bit of audio in which Epstein appears to have secretly recorded a meeting between himself and between Ehud Barak, the former prime minister of Israel, talking here to Ehud Barak specifically about the company Palantir. Let's take a listen.
He thought there was two cyber companies. Look out, and even though I know Peter, I've never met Peter Thiel. And everybody says he sort of jumps around and acts sort of strange, like he's on drugs.
Smoking, yeah.
Yeah.
He looks there under drugs.
However, he has a company called Palantir. P-A-L-L-E-N. T-I-E-R. Palantir is Peter Thiel's company. And look out.
Palantir, P-A-L-A-N-T-I-E-R?
Yes.
How you write Thiel? T-H-I-E-L-L-Y?
T-H-I-E-L.
Yeah. L-L-Y.
No. T-H-I-E-L-L.
Okay.
So he thought that Peter would put you on the board of Palantir. Peter Thiel is one of the best. I've never met him. He's going to come here next week. So I wanted to talk to him after I talked to you.
Okay.
He and Andreessen, it's called Andreessen Horowitz. Andreessen Horowitz, that's what they pay Larry $1 million a year. Just to advise them.
Andreas and?
A-N-D-R-E-E-S-O-N, Andreessen, and Horowitz.
And Howard?
H-O-R-O, Horowitz. Horowitz.
Ah, Horowitz.
Yes.
What they are? It's a lobbyist. What they are doing?
They are the biggest venture capital people in Silicon Valley.
What, bigger than Sequoia or Kleiner
These
Perkins?
are the new Kleiner Perkins. Everybody, these are the smart boys.
Yeah.
So those two companies right away, in terms of, I said that we need now, in the next 3 weeks, if you're going to leave.
Very important find there from
clip.
Ryan. And that was from a multiple-hour clip, so I don't even know who went through that. Props to whoever did. But you can see there Epstein advising Ehud Barak. Ehud Barak is the former prime minister of Israel. He's also former head of military intelligence. Founded a security company, which, of course, was invested in by Jeffrey Epstein, which has long been a suspected intelligence, Mossad potential connection. Let's continue.
Spelling there also extraordinary.
Yeah, disastrous. But I mean, that's part of the crazy part is like the idea this was some sort of genius. He's literally an imbecile. At least from what we could see here, he was just good at one thing, and that one thing was appearing to be very socially connected, and of course his own disgusting predilections. Let's go to the next one. I found this actually in the files. This is a exchange between Ehud Barak and Epstein. I'll set the stage. This is ahead of a meeting with a Qatari investment fund, and he says, "Hi Jeff, are you going to be in London on Thursday?" Epstein replies, "Unfortunately not. You should make clear I don't work for Mossad," smiley face. Ehud Barak says, "You or I?" question mark. And Epstein says, "That I don't," smiley face. Okay. That you should make clear, by the way, it's completely unprompted, ahead of a meeting apparently with the Qataris for a major investment deal where he's like, hey, just make clear that I don't work for Mossad. So clearly, what do they think? He works for Mossad.
Well, and Ryan made the comment here. He's like, yeah. He doesn't. That's true. He doesn't work for Mossad. It's more like Mossad works for him.
Right. Yeah. That's
that's Ryan's assessment.
Right. That was Ryan's assessment. So yeah, I mean, I guess technically correct. Right. Whenever it comes to that. This is the next one. In 1999, Epstein anonymously FOIA'd the CIA to obtain all CIA records that might reflect an open or otherwise acknowledged agency affiliation between himself and the CIA. In 2011, he wrote again to see if CIA had acknowledged any links with him in the 12 years since. Now, why would somebody do that if there was no connection at all? By using the lawyer, he had to go through the Privacy Act that ensured that the public would not know that Epstein was the requester of CIA records. This is all from Mike Benz. And all the correspondence would remain between the CIA and Epstein's law firm. So as you can show out, it's pretty crazy that you're even FOIA-ing the CIA back in 1999 asking for any records about yourself. Why would you want any some sort of acknowledgement from the CIA of your potential prior past service? And this is why, remember the year, 99. This is years after where many of us who have been researching and studying the Epstein case have suspected when his intelligence connections began in the 1980s. And there was that alleged involvement with the arms traffickers from Douglas Lease to the Khashoggis, Adnan Khashoggi. You had his potential involvement here with some Iran-Contra financing deals back in the 1980s, the ability to move money around Steve Hoffenberg and the prior association there with moving money offshore, a skill very, very important for the U.S. intelligence community. 1999, before, again, the conviction. So there, the potential of why exactly he's FOIAing his own records, there's multiple things, right? He could be trying to force them to acknowledge their relationship with him. He could be trying to put them on notice for his relationship now previously. But following up back in 2011, there is some, again, this is my own personal suspicion. My suspicion, and this is backed up a little bit by some other analysis, is that he was furious potentially that they had cut association with him potentially around that time after his conviction. Now remember, they potentially may have gotten him out of the conviction or some sort of intelligence connection, might have gotten him the sweetheart deal. But by 2011, he's jonesing to either try and force them to acknowledge the relationship, to bring him back in, and or potentially threaten to reveal some of what he knows. But it is open and shut insane, the FOIA record from 1999, prior to any conviction, prior to any investigation into Epstein. That is a clear cut, clearly shows some sort of association that happened to exist at that time. This is not something they're going to acknowledge anyway, even in some sort of a FOIA. It seemed to have been putting them on notice, potentially trying to restart something, but at the very least, it does show that some sort of connection, at least in Epstein's mind, had believed to have been there for many, many years, going back almost, more than 20 years ago now.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, you're the CIA, you don't really want people to know that you're connected with Jeffrey Epstein for a variety of reasons. And so could very well have been, a little shot across the bow of, hey, this could all be made public.
Yep.
And I know that you know, and so I'm just sending this in so that you see it. And so it's almost like, could have been almost like a threat.
Well,
and we know the way he operates, right? This very manipulative, very strategic, sending himself all those emails into his inbox about various dirty secrets of the billionaires and other elites that he knows. This could have been similar type behavior, like a threat aimed at the apparatus of the CIA.
Right. The other reason why I think it's very important is that we know from the CIA's behavior, I talked about this previously, the CIA in many cases, which involved, let's say, CSAM material, okay? What they would do is they would almost never have those cases go to trial, like when their agents were involved. Why? Because they can never have their agents go into open court. They're terrified because they don't want their sensitive material to ever be released, let's say, in an open trial, because that would be public. So almost certainly, we know in multiple cases, they would pressure the DOJ and the FBI. They go, guys, I know this is heinous. We need to strike a plea deal. This cannot go to trial. This guy needs to go to federal prison, and in exchange, he gets a few years shaved off of his sentence, and we all walk happy. This is multiple instances where we've seen stuff like this. There's a reason why this heinous activity comes hand in glove with a lot of intelligence, because you can usually get away with it, and you can leverage your connections. It gets to the potential of the sweetheart deal. But I do think the FOIA is one of the most important for our own intelligence, not to mention foreign intelligence. Now, keeping with the foreign intelligence, let's go to D3. This is, again, directly contradictory of a lot of the stuff that FBI, Kash Patel, and all those had previously told us. So here we are. This is an email I found in the files, where Epstein emails, you can see the Russian there. He says, "How are you? I need a favor. There is a Russian girl from Moscow. She is attempting to blackmail a group of powerful businessmen in New York. It is bad for business for everyone involved. She arrived New York Saturday last week, staying at the Four Seasons on 57th Street. ... Suggestions, ? So on its face, threatening, right? Why is he listing her address? He says, hey, this is bad for business. I need this to go away. Here's her address, by the way. Here's where she's staying. She's Russian. The guy she's emailing is Russian. I need some help with this, okay? I need a favor, all right? So this is literally like mob talk. Well, if you look a little bit deeper, it's even crazier. So let's put the next one up here on the screen. So this was Epstein's ties with an FSB Academy graduate. Remember that Russian that I mentioned previously when we were talking about the Peter Thiel case. This guy's name is Sergei Belyakov, who was then the Deputy Minister of Economic Development, later the head of the St. Petersburg Economic Forum Foundation, which runs the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. Became the norm for female escorts from all over Russia to be present at the forum. Belyakov is a graduate of the FSB Academy, which prepares Russian intelligence officers. At the Dossier Center discovered, he helped Epstein to deal with a Russian model who was blackmailing American businessmen, as well as proposing to arrange meetings with multiple, senior officials inside of Russia. For his part, Epstein would then advise him on saving the Russian economy amid imposed sanctions, while also recruiting high-profile guests for the St. Petersburg Economic Forum. So you can see clearly, I need this rush. She's attempting to blackmail people. I need some suggestions. According to Epstein, the powerful men were taking advantage of women like her. Belyakov responded swiftly, sending a profile of her just days later. And he lists her colleagues, nobody behind her. He says doesn't appear to be working with anybody else. Deny of the access to the U.S. would be a great threat to her business. So what he's doing is that he is compiling some sort of dossier inside of Russia and sending it over to Epstein. So this is, again, you have a Russian intelligence official. By the way, even in general, you don't become a senior official inside of Russia like this without some sort of patronage, right? From Putin, from anybody, from any of the oligarch class. Epstein's connection here, and there's so many emails with Russian girls that are in there just in terms of his own depravity. And so now we have Mossad at the top that we talked about, CIA, and here's FSB. And not to mention the Qataris and all of these other people that we have talked about. And that's why I think it's very important. You said the Mossad works for him. In a certain sense, he was never some clear-cut employee and or asset. He floated above in this universe where he was connected to everybody, including the arms traffickers and everything. And I think that what this does is back up and show where he's using his intelligence network, obviously on behalf of himself and his powerful businessman friends who are being blackmailed. You have this previous joke, right? Please don't say I work for Mossad, CIA, FOIA. I don't know what else you need here to see very clearly. This is in no way somebody who was not connected to multiple intelligence agencies on its face very clearly, especially when we continue and show everybody all of the other stuff he was doing out in the open to help foreign governments negotiate trade deals, peace agreements, ambassadors, ensnaring this. Clearly, it's part of statecraft that was important to his overall social network.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's put the next one up on the screen because this dovetails with this. We've talked so much about the original quote-unquote sweetheart deal, and there had been this, this one allegation, anonymous source to the Daily Beast, as Glenn points out, that Acosta had said that he was told Epstein belonged to intelligence. Now we have, because of this release, an FBI report that describes the same. So I'll read you. This is from the FBI report. Jeffrey Epstein was represented by Alan Dershowitz. Confidential human source, CHS, remembered Dershowitz telling Alex Acosta, U.S. Attorney of Southern District of Florida at the time, that Epstein belonged to both U.S. and allied intelligence services. CHS shared phone calls between Dershowitz and Epstein, during which he or she took notes. After these calls, Mossad would then call Dershowitz to debrief. Epstein was close to the former Prime Minister of Israel, Ehud Barak, and trained as a spy under him. Barak believed Netanyahu was a criminal. Saudi Arabia, and that gets into the internal Israeli politics, Saudi Arabia, Israel, and the UAE are allied against Qatar, Turkey, Iran, and Syria. One of CHS's blank, who presumably worked blank, asked CHS a lot of questions about Epstein. CHS became convinced Epstein was a co-opted Mossad agent. So this is from an FBI report. It does say that some phone calls were shared by the source here to the FBI. So there was at least some evidentiary backup. But, if you put this together with that Daily Beast anonymous report, you start to have more indications here, especially when you put together all of the other reporting that you've done, that Ryan's done, of all of the connections that we have, the fact that he's FOIAing himself and his CIA connections, et cetera.
I have another one.
Go ahead.
This literally just came across. I just pulled it up from the file. So at one point, somebody had sent Epstein an email to Steve Bannon about Alex Acosta. It mentions some of the Alex Acosta letting Epstein off. Epstein just replies to Bannon, "Do you know Bill Barr? Period. CIA. Period." That's it. That's all he said. And yeah, and remember, by the way, Bill Barr was the attorney general at the time, not at the CIA. However, his father is a longtime, CIA intelligence connected official, and also the person who literally hired Jeffrey Epstein whenever he was for his very first job, just so everybody
when
knows.
he had no credentials or business getting that job.
Correct, as a teacher.
Yeah.
All right, so just to show everybody again, where this all starts.
Imagine being a high schooler and Jeffrey Epstein was your teacher.
Yeah, actually, no, there were some.
Yeah.
They got harassed. That's part of the reason he had to leave.
Yep.
Yeah, it's sick. There's a report about it, actually, from a few years ago. Let's continue here with some of this stuff. Let's put D6 up here on the screen. This is from DropSite. Quote, "Leadership would like your help. Indian billionaire tapped Epstein before Modi's visits to the U.S. and Israel." So clearly, some of the Indian billionaires got word, hey, there's this guy. He knows a lot of people. Maybe he can help people exactly with what's going on here. And you had, somebody who, again, is asking for some advice and giving it to the Indian government about how they should react with respect to Israel to try and get some more favorable view here in the United States.
Yeah.
And it was actually Anil Ambani, the DropSite is reporting here, an Indian billionaire associated with the BJP government, sent Epstein a message that leadership was asking for his assistance in connecting with senior figures in Trump's orbit ahead of an upcoming state visit by Modi at the time. Ambani texted Epstein, "Hello, was in Delhi. Leadership would like your help from me to help Jared and Bannon ASAP. Please advise. Likely visit to DC by PM in May to meet Donald. Also assistance on that." Epstein and Ambani then proceeded to set up a time for a chat. Few messages later, Ambani said, "Thanks as always." Epstein replied, "Fun." I mean, if you don't know, Ambani, literally one of the richest men in all of India. There's a famous wedding. I think maybe this guy's son, one of the Ambani family. You can Google it. It was like the most ostentatious wedding, literally in like human history. So that's what we're talking about. And this goes to the point of the global financial elite. Let's put D7 up here on the screen to underscore the UAE connection. So here you have, this was a crazy one from the files. Epstein was messaging contacts in real time as the Khashoggi story broke and speculated that MBZ had set up MBS. Jamal Khashoggi killed on October 2nd, 2018. By the 12th, the story had come to crisis. That day, Epstein emailed a contact, "Something smells bigger to me. I wouldn't be surprised if MBZ set him up." Then messaged somebody else. "What I'm told, secondary source, is that one of the assassins put video on his phone and it was hacked." October 13, Epstein says, "Can they label him a terrorist? Covert op gone bad. Honey trap Turks, ? MBZ, ? At the same time, a message to Epstein, "MBZ asked me to come over and see him ASAP, leaving in the morning." Epstein had sources inside the operation, and clearly he was following this Gulf intrigue story very closely, especially because he seems to have been connected to a lot of these folks.
Well, and wasn't Epstein connected to Khashoggi's, was it his uncle,
Yes,
who was the
Khashoggi.
arms dealer involved in Iran-Contra, was one of his earliest sort of like intel-connected contacts.
That's right.
So it makes sense that he,
Of course he knew him.
kept
Yeah,
those
he was
contacts
He
close.
was very close with the family. So MBZ, obviously from the UAE, you got the Saudis here involved, the Khashoggi family as well. Here's another one. Let's put this up there on the screen. This is from Emily. Great find from her. She said 2010 emails from Dan Dubno offering to set up meetings for Epstein with Israeli hackers and DARPA people. "I designed this so you'd get your questions answered if you'd help me get mine," he said of a crypto workshop that he was setting up. You can just see there's so many indications. And then turning now, I think, to a little bit of his death, you've also seen some of these indications, for example, about why exactly he would kill himself. Let's put D9 up here on the screen. Inside of the files, the lawyers discussed the possibility of cooperation days before his death. Less than 2 weeks before he was found dead, his lawyers had met with Manhattan federal prosecutors, somebody who was about to strike a deal, not necessarily, much more necessarily potentially a target than really somebody who was, on the verge of committing suicide. So you can see also that he was afraid of even returning to his cell in one particular instance that you also saw in the files. And this fits with the video that makes no sense that has been released. Remember Pam Bondi's infamous, what did she say? She's like, oh, there was an old system at the time that just happened to delete like a minute or so of footage. I'm like, yeah, for sure. That's definitely what it is. We have the videos from CBS about his cell, all of the stuff about the cellmate, about the cameras. I mean, when you put all this stuff together, I don't think it looks like the official story. Anything adds up.
Yeah, so this Guardian story says less than 2 weeks before Epstein's death in jail, lawyers and Manhattan federal prosecutors met and discussed his potential cooperations. According to several documents within the cache of files, on July 29th, FBI and prosecutors met with Epstein's attorneys who in very general terms discussed the possibility of a resolution of the case and the possibility of the defendant's cooperation. An FBI document titled Epstein Investigation Summary and Timeline stated. Another document titled Jeffrey Epstein's Significant Case Notification, which was not attributed to a specific agency, closely resembled this FBI memo, provided several more details. Quote, defense counsel did not make a specific proposal and they did not indicate what the nature of Epstein's cooperation might be, if any. It was suggested defense counsel contact SDNY, Southern District of New York, if Epstein was prepared to accept responsibility for his conduct and or they had a specific proposal for a resolution of this case. So they were at least in talks about some sort of cooperation deal and, obviously never got any further than those talks.
Yeah, that's right. All right, so let's stick with that, and we will go now to foreign. Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.